Okay, superb. Great, Mr. Jim. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for accepting my invite. And I still remember this is going back a few weeks ago, early December-ish, I think. That's when I was having a chat with Hiril. She told me that, you know what, Chander, just leave everyone else. Or the only person you need in the podcast is Jim. I said, oh my goodness, that is for sure. Then I'm definitely getting him. And I wanted to apologize for the delay in bringing you on in this journey because of the fact that I've been single-handedly doing this since a year and a half. When I think about it, it's getting close to 2 years now in March. And guest number 111. So you can imagine I have my plight with this whole journey. I've been on my toes, but it's been phenomenal. I'm enjoying every single thing that I'm doing as part of this journey. I'm enjoying it, and I'm cherishing all these memories that I'm creating with the support of yourselves, coming on to this journey and then sharing all those memories which I'm dying to hear. So thank you once again. And then also the little bit that we got to interact during the Atrangire podcast going back a few weeks ago again, I absolutely loved it. And you may have also read some of the feedback that I kept sharing to you guys, where the fans absolutely loved the inputs that you provided as well, even with the little bit that you chipped in the podcast. As much as I try, to be honest with you, I tried very hard to actually put you on the spot. I wanted to dig more and more out of you, but this is what happens when you have a group podcast where you have more number of people, and it's next to impossible to have just one person talking more and the other person keeps quiet and waits for the other person to finish. So I'm sorry, but I tried, but I was really waiting for this solo podcast where I get this, should I call it me time with Jim? And also, this is something that I wanted to share as another reason for delaying to invite you. So it's absolutely my fault. Very very much in the start of the journey. This is March last year, something like that, is when I was talking to Gulraj about the podcast journey and I was getting him on board. He told me that, you know what, there's one person you should really speak to, that is Jim. And I said, yeah, definitely. I made a note. I've got this massive Excel spreadsheet and all that. And then, but with the long list of people I've had, I obviously missed you out in that, and then hence the delay. Sorry again.
I should be here.
So thanks again, Jim. So I have a lot of things to talk about, and I don't even know where to start, but I will try and start somewhere, because the whole podcast, as you know, it's not scripted. I just ask things, I just talk about things that comes to my mind, and then and as we go in the flow of the conversations, that's when I try to dig more and more. That's how I usually approach it. Maybe I'll start with the music production side of the world, right? So let's go to the absolute basics. What does a music producer do in the world of music, and then what differentiates in the ARR world, so to speak?
Now, if you look at music production as a whole, it has evolved over time.
Yeah.
How it started off originally, there was nothing which was like an electronic media where you could, program something earlier, make a blueprint of something.
Right.
But earlier it was, let's say a music director has something with him, let's say a piece of music. So he calls in an orchestra.
Right.
So everything is written down, the music sheets are written down, and the orchestra is called, or the different musicians are called, and it is recorded. So what happens is, for the director or even anybody, the producer, to listen to something like that, he's not going to have a clue till everything, because it's all on paper. But when the orchestra comes and plays, it's like, oh wow, that's the birth of the song or the background score, whatever. But till then, they're in the blind spot, they have no clue. But then over time, say around mid 80s, slowly music production. But again, I want that term music production. I wouldn't say that it was a term which was used at that time. It was more music programming, or computer programming, that kind of thing. And that time there was no computers again, so it was hardware sequencers. So at least there at that time we had basic sounds, and there was a sequencer where you could program something. So which means whatever the music director had in mind, he can play it back to the director. Now at least he has an idea as to what it's going to sound before he calls in the live musicians, like the orchestra or the flute player. So we can put in a rough. So that's what I call like what you do when you make a building. What you do first, you make a plan and you make a blueprint. So, or nowadays, obviously, you have a 3D image. But earlier, you make a plan. So that plan is what a music producer basically does. So it could, so that in our music term is going to add into arrangement of music. Arrangement as in what kind of chord progression we're going to use, what kind of harmonies we're going to use, what kind of instrumentation. So now that again comes as a brief from the music director. So the music director gets it from the director, who will say, okay, this we're going to go shoot somewhere abroad for the song. Or this is a situation song where he's just going to be sitting in a club and, he's maybe very emotional. So these are the briefs he gets. So from there, he makes the tune, and then it comes to the next stage where the arrangement part of it happens.
Understand.
So now again, when you go back in time, in those days, music director was there. Most music directors could arrange by themselves, or they could only make a melody. So they always made use of an arranger who can hear this tune and then suggest, okay, these kind of harmonies we can use this chord progression, and and then maybe they might play it on the harmonium. In those days, that's what was a common instrument which was used. So when he plays, this sounds nice, and then they go forward and write down things. So slowly, when music production started off, we have all the sounds, we have the technology to produce this in a small way, which is still not the 100% what we're going to listen to at the end. But it gives you an idea as to what it sounds like. So now when they hear it and they say, wow, this is really nice, let's go for the recording. So now again, another stage through this whole thing was hardware sequences, where it was just an 8-track. So we could record 8 different instruments on this thing. So that's where maybe my journey with Rahman also, I would say, no, of course, I know Rahman much before that. But going back into, so he suggested, why don't you buy this MC50? He was having the MC500. Sorry, it's a little technical terms. But
no, please do.
These are called sequencers, basically. So whatever you heard in Roja and any of the early albums was all done on the MC500. So the Roland MC500 was this thing which he was using. So when I got to meet him at that time, he had that. So then I said, man, I want something like this. So he suggested, the newer model has come. It's called the MC50. Why didn't you buy that? So then that's when I went and picked that up. And so I had one keyboard. In fact, that keyboard, I picked it up from him only. He was selling one of his keyboards. So I bought that. That was my very first professional keyboard, which I had. So,
did he give it to you at a mate's price? I'm just joking.
No way. He said, you're going to make money out of this, so you better will pay me. So I had this lovely keyboard, 76 keys. And it was like, because I basically used to play a lot of piano at that time. Being born in a musician's family, my dad's a pianist. So piano was like a little natural. So I used to play it quite decently, I would say. So the 76 key almost made me feel like I was sitting in front of a piano and playing. So it was great. So that's when I picked that up, and then he suggested this MC50. So that also I bought. Then, as always, any kid having a toy, you just want to get it working from day one. I sat and I couldn't figure out ABC of anything. So frantically tried calling this guy, because in those days there's no mobile phones, no pages, nothing. So
when you say this guy, sir.
Yeah, sir. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, you need to go a little history, because I know him from, I think, 1970.
Of course, yeah. I'm just trying to visualize as you describe, that's all. So I just wanted to ensure that when you say this guy, you're actually referring sir. Okay, fine. Yes, that's all. Yeah.
I mean, I know him from 78, and
Of
then
course.
we're the same age also. He's just 5 months ahead of me. That's
Wow.
calculation. So, but he still claims that he's younger than me. We always have that debate. Hey, you're still younger than. No, sorry, I'm still younger. No chance, you're old man. So we always pull each other like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a new toy and I couldn't figure out ABC. So someone called up his house, his mom, and he picked up and said, "No, he's gone for recording." So when so just ask him to give me a call. And there's a landline. So he called back. I don't know whether I called. It's been such a long back. So, oh no, sorry, he didn't respond. So what I did, I went straight to his house. I took my bike at that time. I went by bike and I said, "Hey, buddy, you told me to buy all this. I bought all this now and I'm not able to figure out anything. Why don't you come and help me?" So he said, "No, not possible, blah, blah." I said, "Don't worry, I have a bike. I'll pick you up. I'll drop you back also. Just come and show some basic thing." He said, "Okay," and he dropped me back. No, I said, "Okay, sure." Quickly, I had one souped up bike also, fully altered. Weird one. I think maybe around 87, 88, I think, 88 to 89.
Yeah.
On the bike, came home. So he said, "Okay, you connect this, you do this, you do this." I know how many of, I know you people might not know the speed at what he works. Everything goes like at like fast forward. That is because he's been so used to working from a young age with electronics as such. So he had completely mastered that game. So
Right.
that was incredible. So he's trying to figure out, okay, you just plug this there. Okay, now you press this button and you do this, you do that. It was like a half an hour crash course on programming. Something he did, and he quickly programmed something from 8 bars or 16 bars or something. And he just saved it and he said, "That's all. Simple." So I okay. I think I would have got 5 or 10% of what he said. Man, this is not going to work out. Okay, I promised him I'll drop him back again, took him on the bike, went and dropped him back. That whole night I sat, I went through the manual also, and slowly, that's how I started my journey.
Wow.
I won't say that's what music production again. Now coming back to the question, music production as such. See, at that time it was more like that. But again, another form of music production where it has turned into these days, I would say, because of the advent of computers, a music producer even records the live parts and gives it. So let's say there's a guitar part, I would have put in a rough guitar part on the keyboard. So the music director says, "Okay, why don't you record the guitars?" Unfortunately, I don't do that because I generally work on a project basis. I finish and I move on to the next one.
Right.
So if this is done, I end in the session and I'm moved on to the next project as such. But there are producers who take up the entire, let's say if it's a song, they take the entire burden of recording the bass guitar, the guitar. So so the whole process becomes very long. It depends on the song, depends on the music director. There are people who can never come up with something, like a concrete thing and say, "Okay, it's done." So that can be very time consuming. So for me,
Right.
I prefer to move on to the next. So I don't sit in for live dubs, very rarely, only if it's maybe an orchestra at times. That's a lot of fun because sitting and listening to an orchestra play your music is the best thing which you can never go through.
Right.
It's amazing. So music production, that is another form where people record the entire thing. But me as a music producer, I just do the blueprint. Everything is on the computer. So the ideas, the harmonies, the melodies, like if it's a music bit, what kind of music is there, everything is there. So later, maybe the team, if the music director has a team, like in case of ARR, he has his whole team. So I just send them the Logic session and they record the entire thing with live music and it's all done. That's
Right.
how. But again, that was hardware. Now we are on computers. So now it's the universe of things.
So how do you see the evolvement of music production? Has it made your life easier, so to speak, in the phase that we are in?
In everything, if you look at it in reality, anything, cell phones is a great convenience, but it's also a nuisance, right? So that is the same thing I would say even with music production, because the real musician feel is missing, because there are times you might orchestrate something very nicely and they decide, this sounds good, why do we have to record live? So then you miss that the human element which comes into the song, that can be a problem. So through evolving, it's good as well as bad. That's all. So if we can balance that out, now luckily a lot of music directors do spend time on recording live and seeing to that it's a good sound which comes
right.
But sometimes producers will come and say, why do we have to spend so much? Go record abroad and things like that. We also go through all these kind of, but quality at the end of the day shouldn't suffer. So if you look at Rahman's music, it's always everything is recorded live. He never looks twice or thrice to not record.
I understand. Right. And I was just trying to absorb everything that you were just describing about the music production and its evolvement and stuff. And I have a number of things running in my mind. I would like to get that out of the way, if you don't mind. One of the things is obviously in terms of the hardware synthesizers and stuff that was used in the past, let's say the Roja era, if I can put it that way, was this obviously based on the research, or how did ARR Sir know that he will need so and so gadgets? How did he know what he wanted, so to speak? That was probably my question.
That's an interesting thing, because there's this guy called they used to call him the Santa Claus, because
right.
he's the only guy who could source out equipment from Singapore at that time. So he used to travel. So whenever you want something, so the struggles of yesteryear. Sorry, I sound very ancient that way. Yesteryear, as in like when technology was growing.
Understand.
So we didn't have internet. We didn't have access to what's happening around the world.
Yeah.
So unless somebody told you, oh, this equipment is really good and you need to pick that up, it's really nice, you'd never get a hands-on. Now, if I want a particular equipment, I just go on, I can Google search it. I have like 1 million reviews on it. So I know what I'm buying. Those days, you're not knowing what you're going to buy. It can be, you buy it and then you think, oh man, this is not what I wanted. So there were certain standard equipment which I think worldwide everyone was using, maybe like Michael Jackson was using or Phil Collins was using. So since these guys endorse it, so most of these things were, I won't say available here, but still they were very pricey. And of course the duties, custom duties were really, really high at that time.
Right.
So some of the more seasoned session musicians were the ones who had all this. So Rahman, I don't know the history behind much before what Rahman became Rahman. Their entire family was into, they used to rent out equipment. So they always had, but very old, I'm talking 70s. So it was these Yamaha organs and things like that. So that is how our family, we knew their family, because our family, we used to do gospel songs. So we used to go sing at churches and things like that. But we didn't have a keyboard, so we used to rent out. So there were just, at that time, 3 people who used to rent out. So one was Rahman's thing. Next was, I think, Johnny DeMello and another person. So these 3. So that is how we used to go almost during Christmas time. Almost every day there is a program. So every day we are at his house picking up the keyboard, go for a program, come back, drop it off. This used to be the routine. So I think from late 70s, used to all the way till around 84, 85, I guess. So that is when we picked up a keyboard for ourselves, and we didn't have to rent out. So we kind of lost touch. And it's once you lose touch, and I think that is the transition from his old house, he also shifted to his new house.
Yeah.
So we lost that small time period. So after we bought the keyboard, we weren't in touch. Then later, I think where I bumped into him was at Shivamani's wedding.
Right.
Yeah. Before, pre-Shivamani's wedding was, I bumped into him at school.
Okay.
So happened post Padma Seshadri, he joined MCC, Madras Christian College, high school, where I was doing my +2. He joined in for +1. I think he missed a year in the middle and he came in for +1. So he was doing vocational group. I was in commerce. So I saw him a couple of times and he was very, very shy and introvert at that time. So he won't talk to anybody. Won't even use a word for it. It was like that. So after that, suddenly he went missing. There was no sign of him. I guess that was the period I think he joined Ilayaraja. I think so. I'm just guessing, just putting the ones together.
Yeah.
See, at that time, my life was going in a very different way. I'm like not studies. I'm not great at studies, but study was going on. And plus, I was in the school band, and then later in the college band. So trying to look at a very different, not a career, as something like this thing going into music at that time. So afterwards, no news from him. And then later, I think during Shivmani's wedding was when I bumped into him again. So that was a gap of almost 4 or 5 years. Must be 4 years. 4 years. So I was in the college final at that time. And then I met him. He said, hey, how are you? And we caught up. And he said, I've shifted now. Why don't you come to my new place? So that's where Panchatan is. So they had shifted there. So we all knew his old house, which was in another place, which is close by.
Yeah.
So after a long time, I just caught up with him, and he had this. So that was the first time I entered Panchatan. It was more like a studio for himself, like his own personal space, and he was doing a lot of ad films at that time. So we connected. So that is when I saw all this equipment, and I was like really fascinated. I said, wow, this is a very interesting route to take. I'm like thinking something like this. So that is when he said, hey, I have this keyboard for sale. So that whole process thing happened. So that was my first experience at Panchatan. And then I used to go there quite frequently because he was just doing ad films, and through the day he used to do sessions with, I think, Ilayaraja, as well as night was ad films. So this was his routine. Then there was this band called Nemesis Avenue. I think you might have seen the picture.
Yeah. With Germany and a couple of other. Jojo.
Jojo, John Anthony. That's a different band. That's called Magic.
Right. Okay.
Nemesis Avenue is with Sudhin Prabhakar, Paul Jacob, Suresh Peters on drums.
Yeah.
There's one pick over there. So they had a very big gig, and Rahman was supposed to play at that time for that show. So he was supposed to play, and these guys were rehearsing for the show and things like that. Suddenly I get a call from the band saying, can you come and play keys? I said, I thought Rahman's playing. No, he's not been coming for rehearsals. He's been very busy with work, so I don't think so he's going to make it for the shows. I'll help out. And it was a rock show, so I knew most of the songs, not an issue. So I went for the last 3 or 4 rehearsals. The day before the show, we had like a final rehearsal. So final rehearsal, I go, suddenly one ambassador pulls up Rahman with all his gear, Sami Dure sitting behind. I say, oh wow, so he's back. So finally it was, both of us played for that gig at the end.
So cool.
Yeah, that was one of the epic turning moments at that time. So I'll share that pic with you later.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, please do.
Both of us, I'm on one extreme and this guy's sitting on the other extreme.
Wow.
But that was early days.
Did you guys used to converse in English or Tamil? I'm just curious. Back in those days, it has always been English, is it?
Mostly English. I don't know why I cultivated this habit. I think he was also doing a lot of ad films at that time. So what happens is generally everybody prefers to converse in English as such. So that way, though that time he never used to speak that much. He was very soft-spoken person. That way it was different. But yeah, mostly it's English. I don't know how that happened. But of course now when I work for other music directors, there it's like a full Tamil. I struggle. So they say, hey, you're speaking like an Anglo-Indian. I said, okay. I said, I'm not.
Because I remember when Keith Peters was also on the podcast, he said, we always spoke in English. And he said, Keith had confessed that his Tamil was not all that great and he preferred to speak in English.
Yeah. Also, see, born in a Christian family, what happens is you listen to a lot more Western music. So that is where we come from. So generally, the tendency, these guys know all the English songs quite well. It becomes like that. I guess that's generally. But somehow this has been the language generally used most of the time, I would say.
Right. And then you've been part of the journey right from Roja days, right? If I'm not wrong.
No.
Yeah. So when did you actually come in?
I think 95 end, I think. 95.
Right.
He was doing film Lovebirds.
Oh yeah, I absolutely love that soundtrack. By the way, yeah.
So I was called in at that time. So, because I don't know whether I'd gotten, because that time I was doing more live shows. I was part of 2-3 bands playing,
Right.
and I used to ad films, music production for ad films.
Yeah.
For most of my musician friends were into doing ad films, so when they needed somebody to do the music production, they always used to call me. So that's how I was into that most of the time. And again,
And if you don't mind me asking, who was the music producer then until you went into the team, like between 92 and 95?
ARRahman.
Oh wow, is that right?
ARRahman. If there's anybody else who would have done max rhythm, would have been Tumba Raja.
Phew.
He's the backbone. Roja I think is fully Tumba Raja, if I'm not mistaken. All the rhythms were done by him, and Rahman did all the keyboard parts.
Right. Yeah.
It's a little technical, like you said, because when you spoke about synths, I think for around close to 5 years, his setup was the same. He had 2 keyboards, I think the O1W and the Juno on top, and a couple of other keyboards, I think the Kurzweil. So that was the setup. It was always set up and the patches were ready, and it was all wired for him to, the moment he got into films. See, otherwise it was, when it was the ad days plus session, it was very difficult because Sami had to come back and set up everything, because night he has a session. Imagine he gets back around 10, has dinner by 11. So if you ask me why Rahman works in the night, it's because of this culture which he had at that time. Literally working 20 hours a day kind of thing. I had no idea.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I've sat at his studio once, I think part of this band only. We were supposed to have a band recording or something, but Rahman was stuck with a jingle. So all of us sitting outside, used to have this small swing. All of us curled and sleeping. It was like, suddenly at 3 o'clock he's coming fresh. Come boys, let's go. So what are you saying? It's like midnight. Yeah? But that's how he's always been.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted your flow. You were called in during the live Lovebirds soundtrack.
Yeah.
So what happened then? Sorry, I'm very curious to know, because it's one of my very, very favorite soundtracks. So I'd love to know.
That's what, see, to me, by the time when Roja happened, that's when again for me, because see, I was in a completely tangent world of rock music, English music and stuff, and things like that. Never thought that I'll get into film industry as such at that time.
Yeah.
And suddenly we were traveling somewhere, and on the radio, Roja is playing. And, because in our family, at that time, it was very difficult for us to even know that transition was the AR.Rahman. For us, it's like, hey, Dilip's song. This is Dilip's song. It was like that. So I said, wow, man, it's going to be and that whole reggae feel for the Chinna Chinna, he's like, wow, this guy is going to, that time itself, we could think like this is going to take him somewhere else. Yeah. So that happened. So since, but still, I'm in my own world and this is happening. So, and by the time Lovebirds happened, before that, there was so many huge hits of his.
Correct.
Huge means huge. So, he was somewhere else at that time. So when I got a call from him, I think he and in those days, I don't know, again, still no mobile phone, so landline. I think he called my house. I was in my in-laws place, so he got the in-laws place number and he called there. And I think it wasn't even Samidra, he himself called. So my mother-in-law picked up the phone and she said, and she's always very quiet the way she speaks. Yaar pesud. She says, A.R.Rahman. Chumma poi sollade. Then again he called. Then she got scared. Maybe it is. And I was sleeping, so she came and woke me up and said, A.R.Rahman phone pannaru. Then I went pick up the phone and said, hey, you're free, man. Why don't you? There's some recording, you want to come? So, and I was not a night guy at all. This was around 6 or 5 in the evening. So I said, okay, I'll come and meet you. So I went then to the studio and he said, this is what is required, and he wanted me to program on 2 songs and then later the background score. So first thing when I went and met him was like, what is it that you can't do that you call me to do, man? That's exactly what I said. Because he's no. You're bringing a different this thing to it, and I'm looking at this very westernized horn sections on the song and things like that. So I said, okay, let me give it a try. And he came back at around, I think, 10 o'clock or so. I was like yawning away, saying, you don't work in the night. I said, no chance. Okay, you go home, come back in the morning and work. I said, okay. So I left. And obviously the gear had doubled by then, so he had everything over there. So he said, don't worry, there's enough equipment here. You can just program whatever you want. You just ask Hamidare, he'll give you. I think I did 2 songs in that. No Problem, no, that song?
Yeah, I love it.
After the raps section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, one small section I did there. Then also that magic song, no? That song.
Absolutely love it.
Very different
magic,
kind of song.
Magic.
Yeah. So
who did the backing vocals for the track, and especially the female one? Okay.
I think Anupama used to sing.
Right.
Veggie, Ganga, they were the
Are they all still around? I'm just curious.
Very much around.
Okay. Okay.
But of course, married and settled in life, so
yeah.
Most of them are singing more individual songs, I would say. Not much, because the younger gang is coming now for chorus. They don't do much of chorus.
You know what, Jim? I still listen to Come On, O Kamakshi song, the Magic. I love it. Especially that magic part. I was thinking of using it in the podcast intro or something like that. Then I thought I didn't want a call from Sir later asking me, hey, why did you use that? Yeah.
So we finished the songs, and then later the background happened. I was there for like a few sessions at that time.
Right.
And then one gap happened. After that, it was again a long gap, because he thought I'm now set only with one particular, because I moved on to another music director. I was working with him for quite a while. So he thought Rahman was very particular that, maybe he's his musician. Why should I pull him away from that?
Right.
So he never thought I was a freelance musician. Now I'm a total freelance musician as such. So only till later, I think 2002 or 3. When did Boys come out? So that's when
around that time. Yeah.
Boys was when I got back there, because he called again, and then we got back to working. So from then on, it's been pretty regular, at least 1 or 2 projects a year. But again, it's more in that zone where, because now his whole team is pretty much set, people who work on a daily basis for him, Yeah. So his team.
Yeah. So. And something that I've kind of noticed is, I may be wrong, but you feel free to correct me, is most of the guys in the team, except for a handful of them, or maybe just a couple, 3 or 4, everyone is a freelancer. So that's how sort of things sort of operates, I think. So is that how it is?
It depends on what Sir would have spoken to them also,
Understand. Yeah.
I feel that I could be wrong also. But early days, I remember, because when he said, no, you need to be exclusive, because everybody wanted their exclusivity also.
I know.
But now, you made your mark. There's no need to feel insecure. That's what I feel. Now he's totally fine about people freelancing. What you're trying to say, I'll tell you what could be true is almost everybody in his team has done music direction for a film. So that itself is a different thing. Everybody, almost. 4 or 5 I know who have done songs for movies by themselves. So,
understand. Yeah.
So they've become music directors in their own right,
Of course.
That happen.
Yeah.
That is that.
And so, so you came back during the Boys phase, if I can call it that way. What was it like then? So you're coming back again after a gap. So did you see things? Did you see things had changed? And of course, it's a Shankar movie again. Things had to be done slightly differently, especially for someone like him.
Definitely, there'll be a little difference, I would say, in terms of approach. But see, always Rahman's brief is very good. He being a musician himself and a music producer himself, one of the best, I would say. See, when he briefs you, it's so clear in your head that, and there are times he could just, so there are times I'll say, hey, just put a blueprint for me. So he just puts the whole thing on the piano itself. So that makes it even more simpler, quickly put down a skeleton of what's going to happen. So then it's a lot easier to orchestrate. So even now, I think for Atrangire and all, I got one scene which was just the piano. So now from the piano, you develop it and make it into a complete according to the scene. So the idea is there. So the idea, take the idea and you develop it. So there are times, and of course, Sir's brief will be there on the side. Note, I think Hiral would have typed out the entire thing for me and given. So that way, it's a lot simpler, I would say.
Understand.
Very rarely have a roadblock. Like I think in the earlier podcast, I did mention that. I think sure. I think 99 songs. Remember, I told you.
Oh yeah, you did. Was it the jazz song, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said, "What do I do with this?" He said, "No, you hear it, you'll know what to do." So this is the brief. So there are. So that's when somebody trusts you on what you're good at or what. So always he thought that because I listen to a lot of jazz and rock music. So he knows that I come from that school, so I could.
Yeah.
So that's why I was called in for Jill and Kadal. You can see.
Oh yeah.
Gave me credits as jazz arrangement, Jim Satya. I said, man, that is sauce arrangement. It's not jazz. So he always, I don't know why he links me with jazz. I listen to a lot of jazz, but I wouldn't say I'm a great exponent in jazz, I would say.
Right. And
I would.
Yeah.
So same for Tu Bole, that song, Tu Bole. So that again, I was called in to do the piano parts and chords for that. But unfortunately, I was stuck in Bombay at that time on some other work.
Right. Yeah.
I couldn't do that. Then he said, "Okay, you'll be back in a week. You can do it." But I think he himself played it. Then he told me that later. See, you didn't come. I did all the jazz chords.
That is definitely so. So the thing is, how should I put it? So when you expand and develop on something, is that usually a trial and error process between yourself and Sir until the point both are satisfied? What is the creative process like between the two of you?
In general, creative process, you never get it right on the first time. This happens for everything, anything which is creative. It could be even video, it could be audio, it could be because there are times things can, and there are times it can be the other way around. In the first shot itself, it could be like, wow, this is it. You can nail it the very first time. But there are times it's never the right thing, or it's like, shall we look at it a little later? So that process definitely happens. So best see, at the end of the day, it's still his music. So he's the decision maker. We can troubleshoot and say, hey, but I like this. There are times there's a song Tango,
yeah. Either Katu Veliyadiya, that's the one, right? Yeah.
So I was called in for that song. So that song.
It's a cool song, by the way. I like it.
So he had I'm sure in your podcast, everybody would discuss how Sir composes. He just keeps putting in ideas, and the song will be like 12 minutes long. Send me the session as it is. I said, man, it's like 12 minutes. Then I called him up and I said, listen, man, this is so long. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to arrange the entire thing? Or maybe... He said, okay, no, do one thing. Come to the studio. We'll sit and chop it. So he sat and he, like little barber shop job, cut this. Okay, this will be the Pallavi, this will be the Charnam, this we'll keep it as a hook. This you can use for music. So we like assemble one little melodic structure. Yeah. So now I had some out of it. So I went and arranged it, and and then he was sitting and listening to it going on. So and suddenly one chord came. His face just went like that. I'm like, man, I thought you liked that chord. That's really nice, So, but that's how it is, creativity. What you think might work doesn't work for the music director. So that's when there's always this back and forth. If it can be repaired later, maybe we might leave it at that. If it cannot be, it has to be correct. And sent back again. Same with the background score. You might have completely scored one entire piece and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful music, but if it doesn't work with the scene, it doesn't work. So
Understand.
you might have to read the entire writing process.
Right.
That's always going back to the blackboard, So sometimes starting with a clean slate as to what you want to do, and then developing and getting something done is the best thing. So creative process never. I'm saying even for classic example again. Now coming back to what you said, classic example was when we were arranging for one of his live shows. Nature in Ronaldo. You went for that.
I was there.
The two SPB medleys.
Yeah.
Which Srini and all, they all sat on one bench. Correct.
Even Karthik was there in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that whole this thing was put together. So Rahman called and said, "Why don't you? I want this as a medley.
Yeah.
Each song going into the other. So before they perform that live, what we do is we program it like how we're programming a song. So we program it, and that is sent to the musicians to practice, and then they play that live.
Understand.
So I did that entire arrangement of
very nice.
So that time we dug into old material, all that.
That's one of my most favorite parts of that concert, to be honest.
Imagine SPB's voice was separate and the music track. And Rahman said, "Man, this sounds so cheesy. Oh God, so much of EQ." See, that's growth. What we did in 2000 or pre-2000, and then when you hear it now, it's either wow, it sounds great, or it's like, man, this sounds so bad. We wouldn't do something like this in this time in So that's how. That's the beauty about it. So a creative guy can never be satisfied. Very rarely he's going to like, wow, it still sounds amazing. So there's always room.
Right.
That's
amazing.
Rahman works in a very different way. Once his project is over, he very rarely looks back at it. And, whether it's a success or not, he's moved on to the next project. That's what I feel. Of course, the songs, now he does so much of live shows that he goes back to the songs and it's looked at.
Understand. And because we are actually talking about the creative process, how has he and yourself, along with him together, dealt with creative highs? That's like when you nail something that you're working on, maybe in the first attempt or however long it takes. That's one thing. The second aspect to that is how you've gone around dealing with the creative blocks where you just blanked out, you don't know where to go. Do you just shut the door and revisit it later? What happens there?
Creative blocks is easier to explain because you just shut down and go home. Coffee break. Or he goes, okay, I'm going for prayer. You guys could take a break. It could be that.
Right.
But creative highs, because he's not somebody who's, I've noticed who, like, he would have done the most epic of stuff. And it's sounding amazing, but he doesn't show it out as much, I would say. Like, I don't know how I managed to be there. Yeah, correct. Same. That is Lovebirds, right? Malargale.
Yeah.
That song.
I love it.
Yeah, I think I went down and somebody, whether singing or some live dub was going. I was upstairs doing the score, so I had to come down and meet him for something, or rather call him to come and listen to something. That time this was going on. Wow, what a song, So I was telling my wife, I said, wow, what a beautiful song. This guy is genius level. But for him, it's just another song, he's just shaking. He's like, nice. Yeah, come on, take. It's that. So I don't see him somebody who's like jumping with joy types.
He has always been like this?
He's always been like that, yeah.
Until date. Yeah. In fact, I remember one of my recent conversations with him on the phone. I was telling him, sir, you have no idea how much of an impact Khwaja Mere Khwaja has had in my life. And I gave him an example or two, and then he heard me out fully, and then all that he said was, he just smiled. That's it. And that's how he reacted to that.
That's how he is. Very different.
Yeah.
Very rarely you'll get a lot from him. Very rarely. But there are times. See again. One thing I don't know. See, I don't know, even from fans' point of view, you guys might be thinking, "Wow, so much." Of course, genius level. We all know that he's in a different league altogether.
Yeah.
The amount of hard work, stress he goes through, very few people know. Very few people know that. That to me, only when I see that sometimes I think, man, shucks, I can't even think of it. I like free time. I like my cycling. I like not cycling only now, but previously it used to be, maybe you sit and watch some television. He's never into any of those things. I think when we were doing the background score, that time some renovation was going on at AM. So I was working there, and me being a day person, I work morning 10 to night 8 or something like that. But these guys all surface only around 6 o'clock and they work through till morning. So generally when I enter the studio in the morning, nobody's there.
Yeah.
That day I was just going towards my room. Suddenly I looked outside. I thought maybe the worker was, somebody was standing there. I could just see a silhouette. Hey, Jim. He called out. I said, oh, Rahman standing by her window. Okay, hey, what are you doing? So these are times when we just sit and just talk, just conversation, just life conversation, philosophy. He loves those kind of, It also is a stress buster for him, away from music, because everybody is like constantly bombarding, sir, on the song ready, when will I get my song? When can we do the score? Or, So this was like a release. We were just sitting and talking. We just spent like close to half an hour just sitting and chatting. So he was asking how's so-and-so. He was just connecting people from 1985 to 90, that kind of thing. What's he doing? What is this guy doing? Oh God, I was caught up with all that. And then we got into work, But you could see there was so much of stress running behind him, because he had 2 projects to deliver. He had live shows. Still, very rarely. So that's that comfort zone I think he has with maybe friends and he himself.
And is that how he beats his stress?
I really don't know how, because now he travels so much abroad. Abroad, definitely. See, at least he doesn't have so many people hounding him. The moment he lands in Chennai, I'm sure there are like amount of people sitting there waiting for us to meet him or get their work done. So that way he's a very busy man.
Right.
So very well too. So I meet him just once a year just to wish him for Christmas, give him a cake and come. So that also hasn't happened in the past 2 years, of course, COVID.
Okay.
And,
Right.
Otherwise we make to just meet him, but at least he gives us that half an hour and we just generally talk families and things like that. So
understand. Otherwise, is it usually remote working for you on the projects that you've been?
I have this studio space. So since I have this, I've kind of work from here now. So they also much used to it to some extent. I think just for a couple of projects, I remember leaving from the studio and going, because Rahman had just come back from the US. He was on a tour at that time. This was for Biggle. So
for which one was that again? Sorry?
Biggle.
Biggle. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
What do you mean Biggle? Sorry, it was for Dil Bechara.
Right, so okay. It is recent then, yeah.
Yeah. 2 or 3 years, 2 years ago, I guess. So that time, he had come down, and that was when he had come down. I'm not sure. Anyway, so they said it'll be nice if you can come at least for 2-3 days. So I said okay, fine. So I packed up everything from here and went to the studio. So literally set up there, because he had a very small window of work to be done. So we got everything done. Presentation was done and everything. So that's when I shifted to this place.
Right, understand.
Otherwise, I work from here now. It's
okay.
Pretty much okay with it.
Okay.
But of course, here and there, sometimes they say, no, everybody's set up here. We'll just quickly finish it. So 1 or 2 days, then it's pretty much okay, I guess.
Right. And also, as part of what I'm hearing, it seems like you've always been a work-life balance person right from the start of your journey? So
pretty much.
Right.
Pretty much.
Right. That's amazing. And was that a conscious thing that you always wanted to approach
See,
things?
we did a set of late nights and
Yeah, I'm sure.
burning oil kind of thing, but that was all a little earlier, maybe around 95 till around say 2005 or so. Then slowly, age catches up and you need to get into routine. So now I made it a conscious effort to, as far as possible. So Sundays is completely off, definitely.
Very nice.
Unless it's like a headline story that you have to. It's very rarely I have to come to the studio. But otherwise, it's like, so I got into this work routine of, this time to this work and then you're back home. And fitness has started now. Thanks to the pandemic, so a lot of cycling and running, that also. So I have to slot my work in between all this now.
I love it. So Sundays are the days you go for a ride. I love those. I love your studio. Would you want to give me a little insight about all those beautiful things that I'm seeing?
These are all miniature cycles and guitar. Just because the camera is facing here, so it's
and those bikes are those the replicas of what you actually have?
No. These I just picked it on Amazon. They look pretty cool.
Looks very nice, and you actually inspired me because I've got 2 bikes with me myself here, and I don't have this miniature. And
really state of the art cycle. I have a very basic one, but at least good enough for me to cycle, and so I'm enjoying myself.
Nice. I see a piano there, 2 guitars.
Should encourage Rahman to get into cycling. His co-brother cycles, so we met him a couple of times. The actor Rahman, he cycles quite regularly.
I know, and he's coming on the podcast very soon as well. And in fact, you might remember Harmony with ARR series. ARR Sir actually went cycling in the first episode.
Oh, okay, I didn't.
Yeah, that's only for that little clip, but he still did. And I still remember, it's like, oh my god, I'm cycling after ages.
Rahman in an auto, that's the classic.
Right. And again, as part of your journey, I'm sure you would have had a lot of interactions with Sridhar as well, right? Sridhar sir. And I really wish he was still around and I could have had him on the podcast. Anything that you would like to share? Because I'm always looking for memories that can be cherished, especially for Sridhar sir.
With Sridhar and my eldest brother were batchmates. So there itself, when I met Sridhar the very first time, so he knew who I was.
Right.
So Sridhar was a bass player. He used to play the bass guitar, and my brother was a bass guitarist too. And they were in rival colleges. One was he was.
Oh wow! Okay.
So that way, so he had a very high regard for my brother because my brother is an amazing bass player.
Yeah.
And so he says, "Oh, from that family, you should be something else." And when we met Sridhar, I think would have been in 91 or 92 when we did an album, a rock album, all own composition and something like that. Something we did at that time. So we recorded at Media Artist. So that time Sridhar was the main engineer over there. So our interaction with him and great memories because he was such a perfectionist and somebody who's always experimenting, somebody who always wants to try out something different. Never go by the book. And he always questions why. Like it, just do it. That's the kind of attitude, very very rarely you'll find somebody like that, and a perfectionist in his own way. So that made him really stand out in his craft. So one other experience was with Srini. You remember Srini, the singer?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, very well. Yeah.
I used to do a lot of programming for him, for his songs, his ad films. So he had this, there was this organization called Banyan.
Right.
So they had a annual day event. So it was like a full celebrity, celeb-studded event. So they wanted a theme song for that. So I programmed that, and it was something they wanted like a We Are the World kind of thing with different celebs more singers singing that. By the time we finished the track, it was hardly a few hours to go before the show that evening. It was really saying, man, it was like 12 in the afternoon, evening 6 is the show. And the tracks are reaching Sridhar only around that time. He did the mix in like 2 hours. You should just hear it. It was really saying, man, this guy is just crazy. He's like, you should hear the mix. It's like, and we were there at the show because since we had performed, we were all on stage saying, wow. They're like, wow, man. First time I'm hearing what you programmed sound, because we didn't have time to record live also. I think Max, Naveen would have played some flute on it.
Yeah.
So it is all different singers and the chorus singing together. We just had enough time to just record the entire thing, but to produce and then make it into one hell of a production. He just did that in a couple of hours. That's the kind of genius we are talking about. Right. So I think he and Rahman went hand in hand. Rahman being somebody who also is very inquisitive and loves gear, loves equipment, new thing, really excites them. He's like, wow, check this out, check that out, check that kind of a thing. So both of them are pretty much in that same wavelength in terms of, so each one will try to, hey, you check this out, you saw this. So each one used to, so even when, in case Rahman's traveling abroad, Sridhar will tell him, you should check this out, buy this, so it became like an advisor for all of us, I would say. Yeah. Gone too soon, fortunately.
Indeed.
But again, pretty much overworked also, I would say, because that time work was just crazy. And then Sridhar was the one-man army.
Wow.
Look at it. And we're just not talking about just the Tamil industry. Everybody, people. I've seen people from Bombay sitting and waiting. Sridhar, can you do our mix? That was the kind of. So then pressure hits you also, right? Somewhere down the line, it's like so much of tension and generally producers have this habit of, oh, it's out because of the mix, everything is getting delayed. So which puts you in a bad spot, right? These are things which can cause a lot of anxiety and stress and tension, which I would say.
Yeah.
That was quite a little bit of a concern, I would say.
Indeed.
That's what we were all pretty shocked. I still remember hearing that news when we went there. It was unbelievable.
How did Sir cope up with it? It must have been a big blow for him when he heard about it.
It was a very big blow. But again, knowing Rahman and his emotions, because I went for that memorial service and things like that.
Yeah.
He was very quiet, just spoke very little. Rahman's not that very. It was very solemn. Even his speech was very solemn. He just spoke. He didn't pinpoint, but it's more like, we've lost a friend. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because I would say few people in Rahman's life were friends, not more like, okay, he's my employee. Sridhar comes in that category. Mani Ratnam comes into that category. When they all converse, it's like the kind of aura which comes through is very different, it's like, two friends are talking, that kind of thing. It's never like the beauty, That's a blessing, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I really wish he was around and I could have had him, but I did manage to get his son, Vinay.
I went through Vinay.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, even hearing Vinay's thing, I was also thinking, because I remember sometimes I used to inquire, how's his son? He said, where? I hardly see them grow. Suddenly one day I thought they were just going to school. Suddenly, no, they're going to college. That's how it is. By the time he comes back, the kids have gone to school. By the time they're coming back from school, he's back at the studio. So this is how life is. And there were no Sundays. Where is there times? So that's where, when Rahman's show started off, it was a little bit of relief, because Sridhar was the first one to be part of the mix for the live shows also. I remember, I think the first tours. So that gives them a lot of time to travel around, so at least you're away from the Chennai tensions, directors, producers. So that really helped.
Right. And look, just coming towards the end of the podcast, I'm also very conscious of the fact that you would have your other commitments as well. And
but today nothing much. I had to send out some files, all done. So pretty much done for the day today.
And so you worked with other music directors as well. So is there something that you've seen different in the way Sir approaches things, or Sir's team, including yourself, approach things in a different way compared to the others? More from a creative process perspective. Of course, work in the night. Some others might work in the day. It might work for them. I'm just curious to know, is there a distinctive difference that you have actually seen having worked with various worlds?
Definitely there is, because everybody has their comfort zone of working, their time of working, their pattern of working itself, So when I work with Preetham, it's a very different ballgame, because most of the time it's just the tune which is given to me and maybe a brief. Whereas now if you take Sir's case, it's going to be a full, at least a slight idea of what it's going to be. Even the harmonies might be there, so which means I don't have to break my head too much on that. But very rarely you might get something which has very bare minimal that you're going to sit and reproduce. But that could be one. That could be one aspect. The others. It also depends on how the brief is. See, that's where for me, where Rahman stands apart is because he comes from the same school as me, started as a music producer, as an arranger, then went on to music direction. So that communication is never a problem. So everything is a lot clearer. So max there'll be 2 visits to that same song to just so it's never like, oh, this is not working, try this all over again. You're not going back to the blackboard again and again. So that way I would say the clarity in terms of, very rarely I've come across a situation where something has completely gone wrong because the brief was wrong. I think once, yes. That happened even now, I think, for Atrangire. I think I played the melody on the beat, which is actually before beat. So that Hiral corrected me, which I said, no, I can hear it only like this. Then only when she sent me the original song, so she said, no, you hear the original song, then you'll get it. So when I heard it, I said, oh, it's like this. So then I had to just correct that entire thing. So the interpretation, right? Sometimes what we call lost in translation at times. That did happen once.
Right. And Hiral plays a key role in that aspect.
She is now the key role, definitely, without.
Right.
But that's one thing. I know Rahman very well. We're friends. We're this. I never bypass that this thing at all. See, when it's work, it's only everything goes via whoever's handling that. Sometimes it could be Chetan. Sometimes it could be Hiral. Yeah. So that's work ethics, I would say. But there are times we've had, just friendly conversations can always happen anytime. That's not an issue. So
right.
That's the beauty of it.
Again, as there are so many things that are running in my head, Jim. So as part of the music production again, how do you, because having worked on so many soundtracks over the years, how do you avoid duplications? Because as a normal person, if I've worked on something, quite obviously I might be inclined with something that I've worked on before, and there might be a slight reference or a hint of that or a trace of that while I'm working. How do you make yourself conscious to stay away from that and then produce something that you have now not done before?
That's very difficult, because most of the time unconsciously that happens till somebody reminds you. I still remember, I think some of the music directors sing. So a friend of mine who was an engineer, we were recording Naveen.
Yeah.
So Naveen played one line and said, so this guy turned back and said, Naveen, this sounds amazing, but the only thing is a Rahman song. I said, no, what song? He said, then he sang that song. No, this is the same, I'm very sorry. So he didn't even realize, because when you come in from the song, it's naturally going into this little melody.
Yeah.
So, unconsciously you might end up doing something. It is difficult. See, sometimes you don't spot it till somebody else tells you. That could be.
And is that part of the QC process?
Part of the
QC process, quality control, where
it is. We can't end up getting into copyrights issues later.
Yeah, indeed.
Sound.
Yeah.
We're going to get into a lot of issues with that.
Yeah.
So that if it can be spotted at the earliest can be great. But there are times, I don't know, because see, I'm still in the music production stage. I'm not. See, if I were the music director, then I might be answerable to that. So I'm sure there is somebody who's handling all that as such.
Understand.
But so far, luckily, we haven't gone into that situation where something we just taken, then suddenly, hey, this sounds. There could be resemblances, There could be resemblances, because there are times when you hear a song, you know where the references come from. The reference says, "Oh, this should be from this song." Like just the other day, somebody sent me a track and I said, "Oh, I can clearly guess what the reference for the song." He's composed this song. Of course, it's his melody and everything. But the arrangement, the way the song is going, it is from. This is the reference which was given to him. So he just had to compose around that. So generally, everybody, because compose something very, very different also. Because the music, the director will be very stuck in his head with this melody that. So how many times we get references which is all Rahman songs only. So it's like so difficult to get away from that. So there are songs, like imagine you have to do one song and they send you the song and it's a song which you've produced. That'll be the classic. Oh man, I have to recreate this again now. Oh, but I'm liking that guitar part. So so the director, for him, it's stuck in his head, So that happens a lot in background score. So that's why when they put what we call temp music, TEMP, it's basically like a reference track which they put in. So sometimes the director, because every time he watches an edit or any of those things at dialogues or whatever, he's so used to listening to the track because even the editors cut according to that cue. Let's say if it's a chase sequence or a thing. So what happens is he's very much connected. So the moment he listens to something else different, though that might sound beautiful in his own way, but he'll be stuck with this, in his head. So finally, it'll come back to that. Can you just hear that reference? So every time you'll have to unmute and go unmute and play that reference. See that I like that little element over there. So these are the blocks which we get into, So now that is so stuck in his head, it's very difficult. And what happens is at the end of the day, the director gets blamed. Oh, look, this is a blatant copy of something. It becomes like that.
Correct.
People do. See, for the general public, they won't understand the amount of troubleshooting which has gone behind a song or behind a score. So that's a little. I feel sad at times when music directors get blamed for a few things.
Yeah.
I feel it's very rude people to do that.
Yeah.
I've also seen songs you heard that song? It's so bad. Like, oh God, poor guy, you put in so much of effort into that, and it's like, sometimes you do some really beautiful songs go into films which didn't work. That also is a real Rahman's Kangalal Kaidhu Sei.
I know.
Amazing
the entire soundtrack is amazing. Yeah.
So I did the background score for that film actually.
Right.
For that film. So that same, I was with another music director at that time. I was doing his score when I got a call and Rahman's call and said, no, there's a score. I want you to come and finish. So I said, okay, I'll come. I said, I'm finishing in a day's time. Over here, then I'll finish and I'll come there. No, they're in a hurry. You finish, you come tonight itself, watch the movie. So I went tonight, sleepy, because the whole day I've been working. So I sat there, just watched the film. Then he said, yeah, you saw it, no, fine. I finished most of it, some patchwork here and there and all that. So I said, okay, fine. So I said, I'll start from tomorrow. So when that time Adi was working there, Aditya Modi. So he was the engineer. So he went there. So I went set up and everything, and he said, "What did sir say?" He said, "No, everything is finished. Some patch up work." So then he opened session. He said, "Everything is done. See this." He opened one whole session, full, real one, blank, like that it was. So he's like, "What?" Then I was like shocked. I said, "What do we do?" So immediately called up Rahman and said, "Hey, no, I'll come now and tell you." So for everything he's singing, he sang something. She said, okay. And like, used one recorded everything, whatever he's trying to sing. She said, okay, recorded. I think he had 2 or 3 themes which he had composed, which was all pasted somewhere here and there. So we had to redo so finally, in like 5 days or something, I had to finish the entire film. Oh my God, it was one person. The reason was he had to fly out at that time. He was going to Mecca.
Yeah.
So his pilgrimage was on. So I had talked at that time, and we really burnt the midnight oil at that time. But somehow we managed to finish the entire score. Took themes here and there, replayed it, all kinds of things.
Right.
But interesting, So, but nice of him to trust me and wanted me to do that score. So I was also, it was more like helping out at that time.
Of course.
But I like to read. No, everything is done. Everything is done. Everything is blank.
Yeah.
But he's like that, very light-hearted at times.
And when you're done with a score or a song, regardless of what it is, do you get a layman's perspective? Somebody, an office boy or someone, getting him to hear what you've just produced and then taking his feedback on board? Does it ever happen? I'm just curious, that's all.
Never, because most music directors don't like their stuff being played outside, as far as I know. Because these days...
No, outside, I mean, someone inside the studio itself, but not necessarily a creative person.
But that, anyway, see, people who are walking into your studio, let's say I'm sitting working on a score, my office assistant just comes in, he's definitely going to hear.
Correct.
So he'll ask me, "Oh, sir, you're working on this film, sir." Like that. So now he knows that I'm working on this. Then he'll come and tell me, "I saw your name there." That will happen. But I don't encourage them to sit through the entire thing. That's the only thing. Because by chance anything goes out, it can be very, very risky.
Correct. Yeah, indeed.
It can,
indeed.
That's a problem with the latest technology, and anything can just be a fraction of a second out and it's all gone.
Indeed.
So that's one reason we need to keep it very careful with a lot of things.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious, that's all, because these days, of course, you could always have, it's just me thinking out loud, that's all. Not necessary that it can actually happen this way, but somebody, an outsider comes...
Early days, I remember, because I still remember Suresh Peters.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the same band. We used to play, and that's when Suresh Peters had sung Chukku Bukku.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he had a copy of that on a cassette. Okay, it was the cassette days, not even CD.
Correct.
So he had a copy of that, and he came and played me the song. So this was before it was released. Okay, so which means it's a pre-released one. But he played it to me. Just to hear, check the song out, Rahman, that's amazing. I sang for it. So, but for me, it didn't do anything. The only thing is, once the song was released with Prabhudeva's dance, and that song was like an instant hit. And see, in those days, there was no this digital media where things are just going to go fly out. And you either hear it on a cassette or you hear it on television. In those days, Olium, that was the serial. Which was the program which used to launch new songs as such. Till then, you're not going to hear anything. Or max till you go to the theater. And nowadays, if somebody dies, it's gone. It's all over the place. So that way, it's very, very risky.
Right. And
the other creative process problem which we face, blocks, because we watch the same film like over a month. So that way we hardly go to the theaters and watch, just because we've seen this film so many times. Again, go and watch it one more time. Unless the film is like so good as such that you want to go. And so that also is there.
And whilst working on the score, and having watched a movie numerous times over that period, have you ever felt? I'm not expecting you to pick names of the movies here, so don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to create any masala here or anything like that, but what I'm trying to ask is, whilst working on the score for a movie and you're watching it and scoring, do you realize, have you ever had a situation where, oh my god, so much of hard work has gone into producing great score for something like this, but the movie is pretty dumb?
No,
Has that ever happened?
Yeah, many times.
Right. And does that demotivate you whilst working? Oh my god, this is such a dumbass movie, but having to, I'm sorry about my French here, but having to work on something like this, but we know for sure that it is going to die.
It does. It really hurts, definitely. But see, it will hurt more for the music director. For us, it's still work.
Yeah.
You arrange the.
Correct.
For the music director, it's a little more. Oh man, this was my baby. I thought the song was really. It's going to do wonders as such. So that's what. See, nowadays, films have also gone into that kind of an evolution where either the film works and it makes the songs also hit, or sometimes the songs make the film a hit.
Correct.
So that's how hand in hand things have become. So that way, definitely it really hurts when you've done a great score or maybe songs, and then you hear such bad reviews about it, not even a mention about the music. That's where it can be really, because sometimes I tend to just scan through to see how the film is doing, just out of curiosity. And sometimes when the score is mentioned, you feel little. Especially for a creative person's appreciation goes a long way, because it's going to enhance your performance a lot more. So that way, you look at these kind of things for your boost as such. That way, I would definitely say that'll help if. So these kind of things can be the other way around, where it can really, oh man, after all that hard work, it's all gone down the drain. So, like the film which we mentioned, unfortunately, the song, but the songs did okay. But it could have been imagined if the film was really good, that those songs would be sung even today. That's a different.
Correct.
So,
and we as fans hear those tracks even today, Jim. Just letting you know.
Yeah, and as fans and as the general public, I've noticed is people relate with the visual also. Big time.
Correct.
Anything. See, for me, since I come from a different listening genre, there's no visual reference, but the song and the melody, the harmonies hit me at a personal level. But for film music, what happens is the visual. So you can instantly connect and say, oh wow, I can imagine this person with this dress, and I remember that scenario, I remember that scene over there laid by that mountains. So there's some connect. There's a connect which happens, or that storyline which can connect in some way or the other. So that way, it's very, very crucial.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are so many movies like this. I'm not going to pick any names, but we as fans within the community, just sharing this with you, we get frustrated about the fact that we know how much of hard work goes into making music and creating even the tiniest sound, like the ting sound that has taken 3 hours for Ishan, for example, in Rihai Day. I'm just saying, but not taking any examples here, but if we see if the visuals aren't doing justice for the music, for any song for that matter, it kind of hurts us, where such great music has been produced but the visuals are not justifying it. And that's how we guys relate to, and we also appreciate the pain that you go through, so to speak.
But like I said, see, for music producers, I would still say it's okay. See, for us, where we feel a little, I won't say rejection as such. Like you've done a nice score for some scene and they just come, no, let's try something else, completely different. you know this works very well, and it's so that can be like, oh man, it's rethink the entire thing, so that'll be a sleepless night that day. It's going to be so, because now we have to come out, your whole creativity process has to change now, so that can be a little challenge.
Yeah. So and over the years, Jim, with the journey that you have had, let me rephrase this, has there been an album that's absolutely close to your heart, or a score that's super close to your heart and you want to be remembered for something like that?
You wanted only because it's I love ARR. This thing should be only Rahman, or it can be anybody else.
Just go with anyone.
Just music for me, Barfi, because that I really spent a lot. Barfi, the movie.
Yeah,
that has been the closest.
I'm yet to watch. I'm being honest here, but I've heard that it's a great movie. I'm not much of a movie buff, so yeah.
For me personally, working on that score, and I did 3 songs in that, 3 or 2. Yeah, I forgot. So that was very personally satisfying for me. Because every time when we scored something and you're playing it over a period of time, and every time you watch that scene, it touches you. It feels nice. That was very, very close to my heart, I would say.
And anything in the ARR world?
ARR world. See, for me, with songs, because see, I wouldn't like to take credit on any of that, because every time when you say ARR's thing is 60% or 70 or 80%, the rest is only us. I don't know about the others, but at least me coming in for that. Jilendru or Kadal was very different that way. That because that only the voice was there and I had to do the entire thing. So that I could say to some extent. But again, it's a very different genre of music. I don't know, not many people might appreciate something like that. That was same with 99 songs. That again, different genre, because that kind of genre generally sends it across to me. So that way, that I could say to some extent was very close. Though I missed quite a lot of projects with Rahman, which they'd called, but unfortunately I wasn't free. I was on some other work at that time. Some really epic films, which I liked. Even I enjoyed working on this one, Dil Bechara's Taregin.
Oh wow, such a beautiful song.
Such a beautiful song. So it's just that piano thing. So I did the entire string arrangement for that.
Wow.
And the Charnam progression to that build up, and at the end something else. So he liked all that quite a lot. So same with creativity in that first instance itself, he liked that. I think just the Charnam, I had done a little jazzier version, which he didn't want, but he changed it to something else.
Right.
So,
and No, keep going. Sorry.
No, I was thinking of any other. For me, problem is memory to remember what are the songs which I. The other song which I did, which also became very popular, was Janagana Mana.
Oh wow! In Yuva.
Yuva,
yeah, I love it.
That story is also funny actually, because we did that song. Programmed that song. I think the next day I'd gone back to the studio. Next day they would 2 days later or something. So I asked him, how he said, it's fine. Then suddenly he asked, you whistle? I said, I can try. So myself and there's a singer, George Peter, who used to sing chorus as well as a little bit of playback and things like that. So both of us were there. He said, okay, go inside the room. So that whistle portion, what you hear, you are both.
I love it.
So George and myself were the ones.
Oh, wow.
Before starting, don't ask for payment, okay? I said, no chance, separate bill coming for that. The idea is when you have let's say, so when you have an idea, you need to execute it quite instantly. Same, I think, even when Kadal Desam. Remember the That again, I happened to be there. So Noel, myself, and Srini was all three of us were pulled in to sing that. So we sang those lines.
So amazing. So amazing.
All those lines we did. There's just only one slightly Karnataki line with Srini. He said, both you English boys, keep quiet for that line. Because Noel and myself, church boys. So he said, no, you keep quiet for this. Okay.
English voice. and just the other side of that question is, has there been projects that has been the most complex for you to crack?
There was one. See, complex as in, don't say complex. See, I like to take time and arrange something because it's very rarely the trigger happens and But unfortunately, Rahman's like one instant coffee. It's like done. It's like that. It's like magic show. So I never knew this. So it was, I think, Boys, that film only. So I was working on more these fun scenes where each actor is introduced and things like all those things. And suddenly it came towards the climax. We had to do a scene, I think, where Vivek, I forgot. Anyway, it's more like the climax scene just before the song. So there's one whole orchestral section. So he asked me to work on that. So I started off, me as usual, by the time I put one click and got everything ready, it's almost an hour. Suddenly he comes in, is it ready? So you saw my session, it's all blank. You haven't started. I said, no, just, what is this? No, orchestra is waiting downstairs. I said, oh, that I didn't know. I thought I have time. He said, no, okay, you go on to something else. I'll do this. So he did that.
Right.
He sat for like half an hour, he was done.
He's wow.
Fast.
Right.
Yeah, he's too fast.
Amazing. And he's still hands-on, isn't it? Even now.
He's a brilliant musician. Whether you like it or not, he is learned and always has that thing of it's never too late to learn. So I think just 5 or 6 years back, he decided to study a little bit of jazz. He was telling me that he learned a little bit. And also learned Western notation, which he studied long back, but to take it a little further, understand music theory a little more. Because people from the Carnatic and Indian music space very rarely will venture onto the Western space. So that
correct.
He wanted to learn that. So she says you should always be inquisitive enough to learn, which is good.
Yeah,
I said that's not I'm done. Just enjoy with this, but he's like, no, you should. So even with technology, he's like that. You tried this out, so they'll always be showing some new stuff on Logic.
Yeah,
only once I beat him for that. I think on the MC, that was years back. That MC50 device, I think. So he heard the song and then he was doing some edit. Then I said, okay, let me save the project. So it's like a 3-button thing. So I just did this and they said, hey, what did you do? I said, no, I just saved. What technology is this? I said, you didn't read the owner's manual. No, I read the owner's manual. I was pulling his lip.
Nice. Love it.
We had a good laughs at times.
Yeah.
Jillendru Kadal was crazy, man, because that time they were rebuilding Panchatan. So that whole place was, one section was demolished, or the house was demolished, something was demolished. So it was only 2 of us. He was sitting downstairs, I'm sitting upstairs and finishing the song. Came down, that's when this guy is also coming out. Hey, I said, I just finished the song. You mix it. I said, I can't mix. I'm not a mix engineer. You go find somebody, I'm leaving. So both of us left together. That's when I think he had picked up the Nano. His favorite car.
He did speak about that car in his own podcast too. So,
remember when we were doing Lovebirds, suddenly I came out for a coffee. So he just sat, he had a coffee, he was sitting in the auto. I said, we just sitting and chatting. We finished the coffee. Suddenly he just started the auto and went for a round outside. So going around Ashok Nagar and came back. Imagine at any signal, suddenly one auto pulls up and says, "Oh, Rahman's at your."
Love it. Love it. So,
That's how cool.
Jim, it's been absolutely phenomenal having you on this podcast, and
Pleasure.
I'm going to cherish all these memories that you've just shared, and I would love to bring you back again. We'll do that in a couple of months' time.
For sure.
And I didn't want this podcast to go for like 3 hours, and then you beat me up at the end of it. So, and also just conscious of your own time too. So with that said, before we wrap it up, is there a message that you would like to share via this podcast to Sir? I know you can always call him and then you can tell him anything you want, but I would love you to please share a message rather, and something that can be cherished.
Nothing but absolutely blessed to be his friend and somebody who's always inspired, just not me, but I think the entire music community, and being a great friend for a musician. I know the number of people he's helped, people who were in trouble, but he's really helped and been a friend that way, and for being a great soul, a person with a heart. Very, very few people have that. It's just not being a good musician and being a good person and being an example for so many people and continuing to inspire all of us. And I just pray that he keeps inspiring all of us and the journey continues. I know we are the same age, but a few more years, no, many more years, sorry. Few is too less, because I know the fans and the other musicians are waiting for more of his music, and every time it gets better and better. So, Rahman, I just wish you the best and God's blessings, and most importantly, good health, and during this pandemic to keep us all safe. Your family, I know your entire family. Pray for God's blessings on each and every one of them.
Great. Thank you so much, Jim. And Jim, as a little thank you again, I would like to please send you a T-shirt. I'll grab your address on WhatsApp later, and I would like to send you one. And as a little thank you, that's all, nothing else.
Oh,
and some chocolates, and just so that you can remember that this crazy guy is absolutely crazy about Sir's music. So thanks for all the
that drives people. That drives musicians and music directors. Definitely, it's the fans at the end.
Thank you. I don't know. I personally do not know what I would have done without Sir's music, which obviously encompasses all the hard work that yourself and all the others have put in for every single little ting sound that has come out of the studio, so to speak. But this has been helping me all through my life as a magical tool to deal with my ups and downs in my life. Music has been such an integral part, and just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work that you have put in over the years, and you're continuing to do it till even the most recent soundtrack, Atrangire, and I watched it on the big screen here in the theater, and I also mentioned to Sir about it after I watched it, that I absolutely loved the background score, and most importantly, the visuals justified the music. That's one aspect that I always look at when I'm watching a movie. So thank you for everything, for all the hard work, and most importantly, thank you for giving me your time, more than an hour and a half, and you've been super kind.
How long
coming back.
I have no clue.
Thanks once again, and the fans are absolutely going to love this. I can't wait to release this podcast. This is going to be one of my favorites.
A big hi to all the fans on behalf of Rahman. Max I could do.
For sure.
Yeah, keep supporting the music, and just not Rahman. I think all musicians. There's so much of talent out there right now. I think, in fact, Rahman is doing that also. Supporting so many new artists who are coming in, independent artists, to so many things which he's put across. It'll be nice if fans could support every musician. There's something to take away. It should be music at the end of the day, which we all listen to. That's important. Now, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I had a great time. I tend to talk a lot, and I think that's what I did. So
that's exactly what I wanted.